Have you been frustrated with your drawings recently? Has drawing turned into a chore and is no longer fun? When you sit down to draw, does it no longer bring you joy? Look, all artists go through ruts. It happens. So I'm here today to help you figure out how to make drawing easier for yourself so you can more quickly get back to having fun. There are a few things that artists do to make drawing easier. Today we're going to be talking about muscle memory. Now, a lot of beginner artists hear about muscle memory and that we need to build our muscle memory in order to make better drawings. But nobody really explains the why or how or what behind muscle memory. They kind of give examples and what you can do and don't really explain how that builds muscle memory in order to make your drawings more awesome, make your drawings more enticing, and make your drawings just more fun to draw. So let's dive into what is muscle memory, why is it important, and how do we build it so we can make those fun drawings again. Especially if it makes it easier to draw. Alright, so what is muscle memory? Well, we've all learned how to walk, and we've all learned how to eat with a fork, and we have all learned to write, in theory. But a lot of us don't remember doing those things. We were probably really little, and you probably don't have that many memories from before you were 2 years old. So, those are examples of building muscle memory, right? As a little kid, you have to practice walking. Well, you practice crawling, and then you practice walking, and then you practice running, and all of those skills build literal muscles and help your muscles do what they need to do in order to get you to do those things, like crawl and walk and run. When you break down what muscle memory is, it basically is a mechanism in our bodies that decreases the need for your cognitive attention on certain functions and features to increase the efficiency for the task at hand. Okay, that was a lot of fancy words, Snow Mew. What the heck are you talking about? It's a way to automate what you're doing in order to focus your brain and your attention on the things that are actually important that you can, pour your heart and soul into. Muscle memory is the thing that takes away the conscious effort of those repeated actions. I talked about, learning to walk, which nobody remembers. But if we think about something that maybe you do remember becoming a pro at, something like riding a bike, or learning how to swim, or typing on a keyboard, these are things that are all built on top of muscle memory. Take learning to swim. I know for me, I remember going to swim lessons. I remember being really paranoid that my teacher was going to yell at me because I was horrible at floating on my back for whatever reason. And I would just attempt to float and then sink. It couldn't happen. It just wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to pass swim lessons. I was terrified. I was going to flunk out of swim class. And it was really difficult for me. Fast forward a bajillion years later, and I'm going to Junior Olympics for water polo. So something happened between being a rock in a pool and becoming a practically pro swimmer. The way that muscle memory builds is those repeated actions that you do every time you participate in the activity. So in swimming, every time you jump in a pool, in a river or a lake or the ocean, you're practicing those movements and the habits and the things that you're focusing on, like holding your breath and proper form and all that fun stuff, to build that muscle memory so that when you're actually competing and like in a game like water polo, you need to make split-second decisions. I'm not focusing on, I need to move my legs in this certain way to make sure I don't sink like a rock. The same thing is true for art. The more you repeat certain actions, they build on top of each other and they become second nature. So when you're drawing your piece, you can just think about, oh, how do I want this person to look? Or what kind of perspective do I want here? Or I need this really dynamic pose to come out right. And then you just draw it. We've all watched pros process videos and they all kind of just draw things and we sit there a little amazed because it seems like magic. But they've done it hundreds, if not thousands of times before, that it is second nature to them. And yeah, it kind of seems like magic, but that's just because we didn't see all the hard work that went into it. Now, muscle memory can be very powerful, right? There's things that you can do that enhance your muscle memory in a good way and kind of in a neutral way. I wouldn't say it's particularly bad. I don't think there's a way to improve badly, but there's ways that you can kind of be better at helping your muscle memory get to where you want to be in a shorter amount of time, which will ultimately make your drawing easier, right? Which is why we're here. So the short of it is you need to practice to build the muscle memory to make drawing easier. Wah wah. Snow Mew, I want drawing to be easier now. Why do I have to put all this work into drawing in order to make it easier? Look, I'm here to tell you the hard truth. It's going to take time. But again, you can shorten that amount of time if you're smart about what you're doing. So listen, you need to practice certain things in order to get better at art and build your muscle memory in a smart way. Okay, what the heck do I mean? If we take two people, Joe and Bob, and Joe's practicing his art by just kind of doodling fan art and drawing whatever he wants and isn't particularly focused on what he's doing, he'll get better and he'll have fun and maybe he'll be a little disappointed at how some things comes out because, he hasn't really practiced form or perspective, but he's, having an okay time. So then you have Bob, who does a lot of warm-ups before his drawings. He does a lot of exercises and he's very mindful about doing these exercises. He makes sure that he, practice drawing straight lines over and over again. He's drawing a bunch of cubes in perspective, proper perspective, so that when he needs to draw 2-point perspective, he doesn't need to set up an entire grid and go through a tedious, laborious task of drawing all these, vanishing points and lines towards the vanishing points. He can just kind of do it. So what's going on here? Well, when Bob's drawing, he's being very mindful about what he's drawing and he's practicing those repeated motions over and over again. And that's the key thing to muscle memory. It's repeated actions. So he's drawing those straight lines and making sure that he's very aware when he has an intent of drawing a line from point A to point B. And he'll aim for that and make sure that he can move his arm as a full unit, not just his wrist. And he will practice that hundreds of times and make sure that his straight lines are full of confidence and he is doing what he needs to do in order to build that muscle memory for that repeated action. And he repeats this for all types of aspects and elements that he needs for his drawings. So let's talk about some examples and things that you can do and practice in terms of exercises that you'll need when you draw your drawings. So, like I mentioned, the straight lines, right? You have, everyone's kind of seen this, I think, where you have a dot here and a dot there, and you ghost on top of the line a couple times, and then you draw the line from point A to point B, and you try to hit both lines in a smooth, not necessarily speedy, but confident line. So you can draw the straight lines. You can practice circles. Same thing, where you think of a circle, you ghost draw above the paper that circle for a couple seconds, and then you put your pencil down very gently and draw that circle. As perfect as you imagined it, hopefully. You can work on line work, things like cross-hatching, right? Look at textures, tree barks, leaf patterns. Try to copy those with intent. Be very mindful when you look at those. And draw them, over and over again. So when you come to a piece that you need to draw some kind of texture, you can just pull it out of your muscle memory. You'll just draw it because you have an intent and you will draw it and you've practiced it before and it'll just happen. You can do value gradients. Those are where, you start from white and you go to black and you draw a very clean gradient from the white to the black. You can use colors as well and do a color gradient if you'd like, though that's a little different and usually harder than the just black and white gradients. If you're a beginner, I suggest starting with black and white. And then you can draw X-ray shapes. So you just think of a shape, right? Some kind of cube, some kind of cylinder, and you draw that shape. And then to make it a little more challenging, you can draw shapes intersecting other shapes. So you have a rectangle, shove a cylinder in it at some awkward angle, and try to think about how those pieces intersect and draw what both of those geometric shapes look like as if you had X-ray vision. You can do exercises with perspective, drawing lots of shapes in perspective, both 1-point and 2-point perspective. 3-point is fine. I think everyone should kind of know about it, but I don't think that it needs to be something you practice a ton. I think 1 and 2 are much more valuable. And then you can draw a bunch of blobs and draw form lines on blobs. You can either do this with X-ray vision or not, and just have, your brain go through the exercise and your hand go through the motion where you think about that form and you draw on top of that form over and over and over again. And you'll get better. It'll happen. It just happens. Whatever you repeat, whether it's sitting there watching YouTube videos or drawing religiously, you will get better at those things. I promise. It's what happens. Humans are weird like that. Outside of using exercises for muscle memory, you can also do studies to build muscle memory. I think a lot of people don't necessarily talk about that concept because studies can teach you so much on their own that building muscle memory using a study is kind of just a side effect, but it does happen. If you find an artist you really like, you can do a study of that artist's work and make sure that you're being very mindful about what you're studying. Are you studying, the proportions that make their work look unique compared to other artists' work? Are you studying the values that they use because you like how their art pops or is very vibrant or saturated? Are you studying their line work? Maybe they have really great thick lines that make things feel kind of chaotic and chunky and dynamic instead of soft or whimsical. And you're studying how those lines, feel to draw, and you're putting yourself in the brain of that person and trying to think how they think and get that line onto your paper or onto your canvas. Or are you studying, color, like I mentioned, saturation? Maybe you like certain, complementary colors that they use, or it brings an emotional response in you, and so you want to study their color values and color theory. And there's all sorts of things that you can pick out as to why you like certain artists. And the best part about being an artist is you can study a bunch of different people that you find inspiring or a bunch of people's art that you really like. And because you're building all this muscle memory, it kind of goes into this blender that is you as the artist. And when it comes back out again, it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it's all mixed together. And that's kind of how your style happens, right? You're picking up these habits because you think they're interesting or you find them fun. And you find that the look that you builds becomes beautiful or aesthetically pleasing in your eye, so it makes you happy to draw. And so you keep drawing it. And now it's like mushed together with all this other previous stuff that you drew. And so each artist becomes this canvas of everything that came before them and everything that they've kind of consumed and processed and are putting back out into the world again. I find it neat. I think it's cool. I think it's something that when I first started, everyone was talking about, build muscle memory, do these things and build muscle memory. But I didn't really get why or how much I needed to do to build muscle memory. But if you just think back to, learning to ride a bike and how long that kind of took to really get good. Maybe you rode a couple times a week after school, but you went out for like years before you probably felt comfortable taking the training wheels off. And then years after that, where you felt comfortable going up and down hills at fast speeds and changing gears. And, maybe even like popping a wheelie or two, or riding off curbs or ramps or jumps. But everyone will get there, right? Like, just because you're frustrated in this moment and you're frustrated that the art that you did, either based off a study or based off something in your mind, didn't come out the way you wanted, doesn't mean you can't do art. It doesn't mean you're not a good artist. It just means that you can't do it yet. So just keep doing it and you'll get there. I promise. So anyway, I think that's all I wanted to say for now. Till next time, Snow Mew out.